Daniel Hayes built Chicago's skyline, but behind the glass towers, he was completely alone. One windy evening, a 12-year-old delivery boy named Theo stumbles into his lobby. A gust of wind blows a paper from his hand, a birth certificate. Daniel picks it up and freezes. His name is listed as the father. 12 years ago, Daniel met Claire at an architecture summit in Miami. They shared a spark, but his ambition pulled him away. Now, her twin boys, Theo and Owen, deliver meals to support her as she battles kidney disease. Daniel rushes to the hospital. Claire, pale but lucid, confesses she wrote to him, but his assistant discarded every letter. The betrayal cuts deep. Determined, Daniel moves Claire to the best hospital in Chicago. He brings the boys home. Theo dreams of interior design. Owen paints murals. Daniel builds them a studio, finally giving them space to dream. But Claire's greedy cousin resurfaces, threatening custody for a payday. A legal storm brews. The courtroom becomes a battleground for truth, legacy, and love. And in the middle of it all, that crumpled birth certificate becomes the family's symbol of reunion. Will Daniel win his sons' hearts and protect the woman he once left behind? Subscribe to see this heartfelt story unfold. Rain peppered the windows of Daniel Hayes's penthouse like it had something to say. 45 floors above Chicago, the skyline stretched in all directions. Clean lines, sharp lights, no room for mess or memory. Daniel stood in his kitchen, untouched dinner cooling on the counter, as the wind howled beyond the glass. His phone buzzed. Another message from his assistant, confirming the zoning meeting tomorrow. He didn't respond. Not because he was busy, but because silence had become easier than pretending. He poured a second glass of bourbon he didn't want. The storm outside blurred the edges of the city he had built, one tower at a time. Hayes Urban Development, his legacy in steel and stone. Yet, inside, there was a stillness no award or headline could touch. The buzzer startled him. "Delivery for Mr. Hayes," came the voice from the lobby. "I didn't order anything," Daniel replied. "It's already paid, sir. Kid's here now." A minute later, the elevator chimed. Daniel opened the door. A boy, maybe 12, stood there, shivering. Wind had pushed the hood off his head. He had sharp eyes and two thin arms wrapped around a pizza box. "You Daniel Hayes?" Daniel nodded slowly. The boy handed over the box. "Someone ordered under your name. Said to make sure you got it. Weird, right?" Before Daniel could ask, the boy turned to leave. That's when it happened. The wind, fierce and sudden, slammed against the hallway window. The boy's backpack tipped. Papers fluttered out, one catching the draft and landing at Daniel's feet. He bent to pick it up. It was a birth certificate. His breath caught. Under father's name it read, Daniel Christopher Hayes. He froze. The boy, hearing nothing, turned. "Hey, that's mine!" Daniel didn't move. He stared at the paper like it had slapped him. Where did you get this?" he asked, voice low. The boy's face tightened. "Give it back." Daniel handed it over slowly. "What's your name?" "Theo." Daniel's throat went dry. The name hit him like a stone. 12? "Yeah. Why?" Daniel stared at him, but Theo was already backing toward the elevator. "Thanks for the pizza." As the doors slid shut, Daniel's reflection remained. Pale, confused, and somehow older. He sat down, the wind still screaming behind the glass. That name, that face. Claire. 12 years ago, Miami. The architecture summit. He had been rising fast. Charismatic, sharp, too obsessed with blueprints to notice anything softer. But Claire had noticed him. She had stood in front of a mural at the conference gala, her fingers tracing the brushstrokes with reverence. "You can't build beauty," she'd said. "You uncover it." He had laughed back then. "That's exactly what I do." They'd spent 3 nights walking beneath palms and glowing hotels, talking art, city dreams. Her eyes had been wide with possibility, But he left. He always left. She never called. He never went back. Daniel looked down at the delivery receipt. Smudged, creased. Scrawled in blue ink were two names, Theo and Owen, twins. He opened his laptop, logged into the delivery service, ran a search, cross-referenced recent orders to his building. One match, just one. Ordered by Claire D. Address, South Side. Apartment 3B. Daniel leaned back in his chair, staring at the address like it was a doorway he hadn't dared open in years. And, beside the receipt, still on the floor, something else had fallen from Theo's backpack. A crumpled napkin, folded twice. Inside, drawn in blue pen, was a tiny floor plan. One bedroom, two beds, a table with a circle in the center, labeled dinner. Next to it, in a child's hand, "Someday we eat together." Daniel held the drawing like it might tear. The storm outside raged, but inside something else had begun to move. Something old. Something he had buried in blueprints and deadlines. Tomorrow, he would find her. Tomorrow, he would find out if that paper wasn't just a mistake, or if he had sons, and had missed everything. The next morning, Daniel stood on a cracked sidewalk in Chicago's South Side, staring up at a weathered brick building. The wind tugged at his coat, carrying the scent of exhaust and damp concrete. This was the address. Apartment 3B. He hesitated. 12 years, not a single word. No idea she was still in the city. He raised his hand, knocked. Nothing. He knocked again. A neighbor poked her head out. "You looking for Claire?" Daniel turned. "Yes. She's at county. Been there 3 days now. Her boy's been running deliveries all week to cover rent." Daniel's stomach twisted. "County hospital?" The woman nodded. "Room 214, I think." Daniel murmured a thank you and left quickly. His thoughts raced. Claire, sick, and the twins, his twins, working to keep things afloat? He gripped the steering wheel tighter as his driver weaved through traffic. The city he thought he controlled now felt like it was unraveling around him. At the hospital, fluorescent lights buzzed. The smell of antiseptic clung to everything. Room 214 was small, quiet. Claire lay pale against the stiff white sheets, eyes closed, IVs taped to her arm. Her face, older, thinner, but unmistakable. Daniel stepped inside slowly. She stirred. Eyes fluttered open. "Daniel?" Her voice was barely more than breath. "It's me," he said, his throat tight. A flicker of emotion passed through her eyes, surprise, pain, weariness. "You found out," she whispered. Daniel nodded. "Theo. He delivered to my place last night. Dropped something." Claire blinked. "The certificate?" He nodded again. "You put my name on it." "I did," she said softly. "You deserved to know, but you never answered. I wrote so many times." Daniel's jaw clenched. "I never saw a single letter. My assistant—" "She thought I wanted money," Claire said flatly. "I didn't." "I believe you," he said quickly. "I had no idea." "None." Claire looked away. "It doesn't matter now. The boys have done fine without you." "They shouldn't have had to," he said. "You shouldn't be here alone." Silence stretched between them until Claire coughed, weak and dry. Daniel reached for the water pitcher and helped her sip. "How bad is it?" he asked gently. She exhaled. "Stage 3. Kidney failure. Dialysis keeps me standing, most days." Daniel swallowed hard. "I'm moving you to the best hospital. Today." Claire smiled faintly. "Still giving orders?" "Still caring," he replied. She closed her eyes again, voice trembling. "They're good boys. Smart. Kind. They don't know who you are." "They will," Daniel said. "If you let me." Claire turned her head, eyes shining. "They draw you, you know. Theo especially. From memory. They ask me why their dad's not around." "And what do you say?" "I tell them—" She paused. "I tell them you're building cities. That someday, maybe, they'll walk into one of your buildings and you'll recognize them. Daniel felt his chest ache. He pulled something from his coat pocket, a folded piece of napkin, the sketch Theo dropped, 2 beds, a tiny table labeled dinner. He made this, he whispered. Claire stared at it, tears forming. He draws when he's scared. I want to be there, Daniel said quietly. I can't fix the past, but I can fight for the future. A nurse entered gently. Visiting hours end soon. Claire's voice cracked. You really mean that? He leaned in. Every word. She nodded, barely. Then go. Start with them. They deliver for Luca's Pizza off Halsted, after school. Daniel stood, reluctant to leave. I'll see you again soon. Somewhere better. He glanced once more at the sketch in his hand. Dinner. Together. That word now meant everything. Daniel leaned against the glass window of his penthouse, watching the city pulse beneath him. Steam rose from the rooftops. Trains howled through intersections, and yet all he could see was Claire, hooked up to machines, her eyes sunken but burning with truth. He clutched the drawing again. Theo's napkin sketch. A floor plan for a better life. 12 years ago, it had started with a sketch too. Miami, the architecture summit. Warm air, live jazz spilling from the balconies, and Claire standing alone in front of a mosaic at the Paris Art Museum. She had on a blue dress. Nothing expensive, but the way she studied that wall, like it told her a story only she could hear, stopped him cold. He had walked up with a glass of champagne in hand, still rehearsing his keynote in his head. It's bold, he had said, but the symmetry's off. Claire didn't even glance at him. So? Sometimes what's off is what stays with you. That made him pause. You're not an architect, are you? I'm an art therapist, she replied, but I love what cities do to people, the way buildings hold memory. They talked for hours that night, not about permits or profits, but color, childhood, shadows in alleyways, murals that tell the truth no billboard ever could. He never meant to leave without saying goodbye. But 2 contracts came through. A tower in Brooklyn, another in Denver. His firm exploded. He assumed she'd reach out. She did. He just never saw it. Back in the present, Daniel opened a drawer and pulled out his old leather-bound journal. Inside, neatly pressed, was a cocktail napkin from that night. A tiny sketch Claire had made. 2 stick figures holding hands under a tall building. Labeled in her loopy handwriting. Me plus you equals something strong. He ran his fingers over the paper. Time hadn't erased the ink. Or the guilt. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Hayes. Mr. Hayes? This is Luca. From Luca's Pizza. The boys work for me. Daniel sat up straighter. Theo and Owen? Yeah. I heard you were asking around. They're out on delivery right now. Just wanted to make sure everything's okay. I'm not trying to get them in trouble, Daniel said. He stopped. It's complicated. Luca lowered his voice. They're good kids. Never complain. I pay 'em cash under the table. Claire's been sick a while. Those boys carry more weight than any 12-year-old should. Daniel's grip on the phone tightened. I want to help. Well, Luca said slowly, they'll be by the shop around 5 to grab the last runs. If you want to talk, that's your shot. Daniel thanked him and hung up. He folded the napkin back into the journal and slipped it into his coat. Then, grabbing his keys, he headed for the door. That evening, the pizza shop's neon sign flickered as the wind picked up. Inside, Daniel waited in a booth by the window, nursing a soda. At 5:07, the door jingled. Theo walked in first, backpack slung over one shoulder. Behind him, Owen. Shorter, but same eyes, same quiet intensity. They didn't see Daniel right away. Luca waved them over, then subtly nodded toward Daniel. Theo froze. Owen whispered, That's the guy? Daniel stood. Theo. Owen. Theo moved in front of his brother. What do you want? Daniel knelt slightly, eyes level. Just to talk. 5 minutes, please. The boys exchanged a glance. Fine, Theo muttered. 5. Daniel gestured to the booth. They sat, stiff, wary. I didn't know, Daniel began, about either of you. Not until the other night. Owen frowned. So, now what? You show up and act like a dad? Daniel looked down. No, I don't expect anything, but I want to be here now. I want to know you, both of you. Theo stared. Mom said our dad was busy building things. Daniel smiled sadly. She gave me more credit than I deserved. Owen reached into his bag and pulled out a sketchbook. He slid it across the table. He draws you, all the time. Daniel opened it. Inside, page after page, tall buildings, and always a man in a suit, hands in pockets, alone. He closed the book gently. I've been alone a long time too, Daniel said. Theo looked at his brother. Can we think about it? Daniel nodded. Of course. And for the first time in 12 years, he left somewhere feeling not finished, but not alone either. Daniel waited across the street in his car the next morning, watching the boys step out of their building in matching hoodies, one navy, one dark green. Theo carried a delivery bag over his shoulder. Owen followed, lugging 2 stacked boxes. They didn't notice him. They moved like they'd done this 100 times. Quick, efficient, no wasted steps. It broke something in Daniel. Kids their age shouldn't know this kind of weight. He followed them at a distance. Not to spy, but to understand. The first stop was a beauty salon. They handed off a large order and left with a $5 tip. Then a long walk to a construction site where workers handed them change and waved thanks. Daniel parked nearby, watching from behind the windshield as Owen rubbed his hands together for warmth. No gloves. February wind biting through every layer. When they passed a bus stop, Daniel stepped out. Hey, he called. Theo turned, surprised. You again? Daniel nodded. Can I talk? Owen glanced up, eyes wary. We're working. I won't keep you long, Daniel said, kneeling to their height. I saw what you do, all of it. I had no idea. No father should find out like this. Theo shifted. We don't need saving. I know, Daniel replied, but maybe you could let me walk with you? They hesitated. Then Theo shrugged. Suit yourself. They moved fast, winding through back alleys past boarded-up storefronts and graffitied walls. As they walked, Daniel listened, really listened. How long have you been doing this? He asked. Since Mom got sick, Owen said softly. Like, over a year? We don't tell her when we get hurt, Theo added. She worries. Last time I scraped my knee, she cried. Daniel clenched his jaw. That's not your burden. Your kids. Theo's voice turned sharp. We're sons. That's different. They reached a beige brick apartment complex. An elderly woman opened the door and smiled when she saw them. My little heroes, she said, handing over 10 crumpled singles. Tell your mama I'm praying for her. Owen beamed. Thanks, Miss Lillian. Daniel watched that smile and felt a tug in his chest. Owen looked just like Claire when he smiled like that. Back on the sidewalk, Theo looked over. So, what now? Daniel hesitated, then pulled the napkin drawing from his coat pocket. You dropped this, Theo. At my place. Theo blinked. You kept it? Of course, Daniel said. It meant something. Still does. Owen leaned in to see it. You got the folds right. Daniel smiled. You think we could eat dinner sometime? For real? Neither answered right away. Then Owen asked, You cook? Daniel chuckled. No, but I'm a great food orderer. Theo raised an eyebrow. If it's deep dish, maybe. Deal, Daniel said. They kept walking. When they turned the corner, a woman called from a window above a bodega, Hey, twins! Your mom's got a checkup today, right? Theo nodded. We're heading there after. Daniel froze. You're taking her to the clinic? Yeah, Owen replied. We walk. It's only 20 blocks. Daniel blinked. 20? Theo looked him dead in the eyes. It's what we've got. Daniel swallowed the lump rising in his throat. Not anymore. They stopped. I'm going to move her, Daniel said, to Northwestern. She deserves real care. You do too. Theo hesitated. She won't take charity. It's not charity, Daniel said softly. It's love. The wind picked up, scattering loose wrappers and grit across the sidewalk. Daniel reached into his coat and handed them 2 pairs of gloves, soft, fleece-lined, still tagged. They'll fit, he said. Owen slid his on first. Warm. Theo looked at his, then back at Daniel. We'll think about dinner. Daniel nodded. I'll be here, every day if I have to. As they walked away, Daniel stayed behind, one hand pressed to the drawing in his pocket, a symbol of what was broken, and maybe, finally, beginning to mend. The lobby of Northwestern Memorial Hospital smelled like fresh linen and quiet hope. Claire's stretcher rolled past polished floors and warm-toned murals as Daniel walked beside her, a hand on the rail, steady but gentle. Are you sure about this? Claire asked, her voice hoarse. I've never been more sure, Daniel replied. This is where you belong, not waiting in line at a clinic, not walking 20 blocks for care. She tried to sit up, but the nurse softly urged her back down. Rest, the nurse said kindly. You're safe here. Claire looked at Daniel. You didn't have to do this. I didn't know for 12 years, he said. Let me show up now. In the private recovery room, sunlight streamed through tall windows. Daniel helped adjust her pillows as machines beeped softly. Claire's face was pale but peaceful. A knock came. Theo and Owen peeked in. Is it okay if we come in? Owen asked. Claire opened her arms. Always. The boys rushed to her, careful not to jostle the IVs. Theo took her hand. It's warm in here. Daniel stood back, watching. The hospital's crisp walls and white sheets couldn't hide the emotion between them. He cleared his throat. I want to talk to you both, he said, about staying with me, just for a little while, until your mom gets stronger. Theo's guard went up immediately. We're not charity. Daniel nodded. You're family. Claire looked at her sons. It's okay. He's not trying to replace anything. He's trying to repair. Owen looked unsure. Do you have video games? Daniel smiled. I have an entire room I don't use. We could make it yours. Theo raised an eyebrow. What's the catch? No catch, Daniel said. Just dinner. Together. Like you're drawing. Claire's eyes widened. You still have that? He nodded. It never left my coat. Theo and Owen exchanged a glance. Then Theo said, We'll try it, but if he snores, I'm leaving. That night, Daniel's penthouse felt less like a fortress and more like a place people lived. Theo curled up on the leather sofa with a sketch pad, headphones on. Owen roamed the hallways, peeking into each room like an explorer. Daniel sat at the kitchen island, making grilled cheese with more care than he'd ever given a business deal. The toaster dinged. The sandwiches were uneven, but they were real. He set the plates down in front of the boys. Don't get used to me cooking, he said. Owen took a bite. It's actually not bad. Theo muttered, I've had worse. They ate in silence for a moment. Then Owen stood up and disappeared down the hall. He returned carrying a small object. It was a framed photo. Claire, younger, smiling at the beach, pregnant. Theo and Owen, newborns, wrapped in striped blankets. Daniel took the frame, holding it like it might break. She kept that in her nightstand, Theo said. She said we'd know our dad by the way he stood, like he was always carrying something heavy. Daniel felt the weight of every missed year pressed down. I've made mistakes, he said. But I'm here. Now. I'm staying. Owen walked to the window and pointed at a building in the distance. You build that? Daniel nodded. Yeah. Can we see the inside someday? Absolutely, Daniel said. Theo looked up from his sketch pad. I'm designing my own building. Want to see? Daniel leaned in. Of course. Theo flipped the pad. A 2-story art space, skylights, curved walls, a sign above the door. OT Studio. What's the OT stand for? Daniel asked. Theo grinned. Owen and Theo. Duh. Daniel laughed, a sound that felt unfamiliar in his own chest. That night, as the boys settled into their new beds, Daniel stood by the hallway light switch, staring at the sketch Theo had taped to the door. A building with 2 boys inside, labeled Ours. The next morning, Daniel stood in the office of his longtime assistant, Melissa. His jaw was tight, hands clasped behind his back. The walls were lined with project renderings and polished awards, but none of it mattered now. Melissa looked up from her computer. "Morning, Mr. Hayes. I just finalized your speaking engagement for the—" Daniel interrupted. "Did you screen personal letters addressed to me over the past decade?" She blinked. "Excuse me?" "Letters," he repeated, stepping closer. "From a woman named Claire Dawson." Melissa's smile faltered. "Claire? That name sounds vaguely familiar." Daniel pulled a folded envelope from his coat. One Claire had shown him, the return address clear, Daniel's name printed cleanly across the front. "She sent over a dozen letters. Not one reached me." Melissa took a step back. "Mr. Hayes, I thought she was just another woman chasing a payout. You've had people send claims before. I didn't want to bother you with—" "You didn't want to bother me with the fact that I have children?" His voice cracked, the words shaking the air. Melissa's eyes dropped. "I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix what you stole from me." He turned, walking out without another word. In the hallway, he stopped, pressing both palms to the cold steel of the elevator door. His reflection stared back, sharp suit, graying temples, and eyes full of regret. Later that day, Daniel sat with Claire in her hospital room, the city glowing behind them. "Your assistant admitted it," he said softly. "She judged you, and in doing that, she kept me from everything." Claire nodded slowly. "I figured. After the 4th letter went unanswered, I stopped hoping." "I never meant to leave," he said. "I just didn't know I had a reason to stay." Claire looked at him, her expression unreadable. "And now?" "Now I know what I missed. And I'm not missing any more." A soft knock came. Theo peeked in. "They let me bring your mail." He handed Claire a small pile, then hesitated by the door. "You okay, Mom?" Claire smiled. "Better now." Daniel reached into his briefcase and pulled out a sealed manila folder. "Claire, I need your help. I want to make this right." "What is it?" "Legal documents. A notarized statement, confirming the boys are mine. It'll protect them legally, especially with what's coming." Claire's brow furrowed. "What is coming?" Daniel looked down. "Your cousin, Eric." Claire's lips thinned. "Of course." Theo stood straighter. "Eric's a jerk." Claire exhaled. "He offered to take the boys before, said I couldn't keep up. But it was never about the boys, it was about my disability check." Daniel's voice hardened. "I think he sees money now, and he'll use any excuse to come after them." "I'll sign whatever you need," Claire said. "I trust you." Daniel looked up, surprised. "Even after everything?" "You showed up," she said simply. "And you stayed." That night, back at the penthouse, Theo and Owen were sitting at the long dining table, each with their own section of paper and colored markers. "Dad?" Owen said suddenly. Daniel froze. Owen glanced up. "Can I call you that?" Daniel swallowed hard. Yes, you can." Theo grinned. "Good, because I was getting tired of saying Mr. Hayes. Sounds like school." Daniel laughed, wiping the corner of his eye. "What are you guys working on?" "Our defense," Theo said, flipping his paper around. It was a drawing. A courtroom, cartoon style. Claire on one side, the boys in the middle, Daniel standing behind them, arms wide like a wall. "No one gets through," Theo said, pointing to the words above the sketch. Daniel stared at it. Breath caught in his throat. "Think the judge will like it?" Owen asked. "I think," Daniel said softly, "the judge is going to see exactly what matters." The drawing sat on the counter that night, beside a family photo he hadn't even known existed a week ago. Redemption, he thought, doesn't always roar. Sometimes it sketches. The next morning, the penthouse smelled like maple syrup and toast. Owen sat cross-legged at the kitchen island, his face smeared with jelly. Theo leaned over a floor plan sketch on the dining table, pencil tapping as he concentrated. Daniel stood at the stove, flipping pancakes. "I think I'm getting the hang of this," he said. "You burned the first two," Theo muttered without looking up. "I said getting," Daniel replied, grinning. Owen held up a sticky thumb. "I vote this one's edible." As they ate, Daniel checked his watch. "After breakfast, we'll stop by the hospital. Then I want to show you something." "Another fancy building?" Theo asked, yawning. "Nope," Daniel said. "It's not finished yet, but it will be, with your help." They arrived at the hospital just as Claire was being wheeled into the sunroom. Her color had improved, cheeks less hollow, hair brushed neatly. Owen rushed over. "Mom, we brought you pancake crumbs." Claire laughed. "My favorite." Daniel leaned down beside her. "You look stronger." "I feel it," she said. "Seeing them every day helps. Seeing you." Daniel smiled. "You'll be seeing more of us." On the way out, they passed a man in a charcoal coat leaning against a column near the elevators. He wore sunglasses indoors and watched the boys with too much interest. Daniel turned slightly, body blocking the kids. "Keep walking," he whispered. They stepped outside into the cold. Back in the car, Daniel's phone buzzed. A text from his lawyer. "Eric Dawson just contacted our office. Wants a custody hearing. Claims the boys aren't safe with you." Daniel stared out the window. "Not safe," he muttered. "Unbelievable." He called Claire immediately. "Eric's trying to take the boys." Claire's voice dropped. "He only ever cared about control, or cash." "I'll handle it," Daniel said firmly. "We're not losing them." Later that afternoon, Daniel pulled up to a vacant commercial space near the lakefront. Floor-to-ceiling windows, raw concrete floors, paint buckets and scaffolding scattered across the room. He opened the door and let the boys walk in first. Owen's jaw dropped. "Whoa!" Theo looked around slowly. "What is this?" Daniel knelt beside them. "This is our project. I bought the space years ago but never found the right vision for it. Until now." Theo turned to him, eyes narrowing. "What kind of vision?" Daniel pulled a folded sketch from his coat pocket, the one Theo drew with OT Studio written across the top. "I want to build it," Daniel said. "Your dream. Our dream. A place for your designs, Owen's art, your mom's recovery. A space filled with color and story." Owen walked to the far wall. "Can I paint a mural here?" "As soon as the permit clears," Daniel said, smiling. Theo looked down at his shoes. "You're really doing this?" "I'm not going anywhere," Daniel said. "This is just the beginning." That night, the boys were unusually quiet over dinner. Halfway through a spoonful of mac and cheese, Owen looked up. "If Eric tries to take us, what happens?" Daniel set down his fork. "He won't. I promise. I've got a legal team, a paper trail, a notarized statement from your mom. And one more thing." He pulled out a white envelope from his briefcase and laid it on the table. Theo reached for it and slid out 2 DNA reports. "Those prove we're your kids?" Theo asked. "Yes. They make it official," Daniel said. "But the real proof? That's you two. Your drawings, your strength, your stories." Owen smiled softly. "Okay, but you're still on dish duty." Daniel laughed. "Fair." As the boys cleared the plates, Daniel walked to the window, looking out at the city lights. Behind him, the sketch of OT Studio was taped beside the family photo on the fridge. It wasn't just about proving he was their father. It was about becoming one. Every day. Every choice. And he wasn't going back. Rain tapped lightly on the skylight of Daniel's penthouse as the boys huddled on the living room floor, surrounded by paper, rulers, and colorful pencils. A canvas leaned against the far wall, Owen's half-finished cityscape in bold, sweeping strokes. Theo tilted his sketchbook toward the light. "I've been reworking the lobby layout. Want to see?" Daniel looked up from his laptop. "Absolutely." Theo walked over, pointing to each pencil line. "Natural light here, open concept, a reading nook near the window, and these," he circled 2 corners, "display spaces for murals. Owen's, mostly." Owen smiled from across the room. As long as I get a wall for my dragon. Daniel chuckled. A dragon cafe? Now that's a first. No, Dad, Owen said seriously. It's not just a dragon. It's a protector. Daniel paused. A protector? Yeah. Owen nodded. For families. For people like us. Daniel's throat tightened. Then he gets the biggest wall. Later that afternoon, Daniel drove them to the building site. The rain had cleared, leaving the pavement glistening. Inside, construction had begun. Drywall stacked, wires curled like vines from the ceiling. Theo ran his hand along a raw beam. It smells like potential. Daniel smiled. Let's bring it to life. They walked the space together. Daniel stopped by the window and held up Theo's sketch, aligning it with the city view behind it. One day, people will stand here and see what you imagined. Theo looked away, embarrassed. I just draw stuff. No, Daniel said. You see things people miss. As they explored the space, Owen wandered to the back wall and crouched down. What's that? Daniel asked. Owen held up a piece of broken tile. It's cracked, but it's kinda cool. Theo peered over his shoulder. Maybe we could keep it. Put it in the floor somewhere. Daniel nodded. Every mark tells a story. They took the tile home. That night, it sat on the mantel above the fireplace, a symbol of imperfections turned sacred. Over dinner, Theo brought out a second sketchbook. This one's different, he said. I was thinking, not just a cafe, but like a place people come to create, draw, paint, build, maybe even heal. Daniel leaned closer. Like art therapy? Theo nodded. Like what Mom did, but with food and stories and light. Owen added, and pancakes. Obviously. Daniel grinned. No art without carbs. Claire called just before bedtime. Her voice had more energy, the fatigue lighter. Boys, she said, Daniel sent pictures of the studio space. I cried. I'm proud of you. Theo held the phone close. We're building it for you too, Mom. We're putting in a garden spot with big windows, for sunlight and plants, and for peace. Claire was quiet for a long moment. You two are the best things I ever created. Daniel took the phone. And we're building something that will outlast all of us. As the boys got ready for bed, Daniel stood at the doorway of their shared room. Theo was taping one of his sketches to the wall above his bed. Owen placed the broken tile on his nightstand. Daniel watched in silence. I've been thinking, he said. Both boys looked up. Once the studio's ready, I want to invite the community. Free classes, open walls for art, maybe even scholarship workshops. Theo's eyes lit up. That's what Mom always wanted. Art that meant something. It will, Daniel said. He turned off the lights and whispered, Good night, my architects. Good night, Dad, they echoed. Downstairs, Daniel sat alone on the couch, flipping through Theo's sketchbook. On the final page, one word in bold block letters, belonging. Below it, 2 stick figures again. 3, this time, standing beneath a building labeled OT Studio. But this time, they weren't holding hands. They were building something. Together. It started with a knock at the penthouse door. Firm, deliberate, too early for visitors. Daniel opened it to find a sharply dressed man in his 30s, dark wool coat, smug smirk. Eric Dawson, the man announced, stepping in without being invited. Claire's cousin. Theo and Owen peeked from the hallway. Daniel held up a hand, signaling them to stay back. Eric walked into the living room like he owned the place. Nice setup. Art on the walls. Fancy kitchen. Twins settled in? Daniel closed the door. State your business. Eric turned, his voice oily. Claire's not well. Can't care for them. And as far as I'm concerned, you're a stranger who popped up with deep pockets and a guilty conscience. Daniel's jaw clenched. I'm their father. I have DNA proof, notarized statements, Claire's consent. Eric pulled out a folded paper from his coat. And I have a petition for emergency custody. I filed it this morning. Daniel took the paper, scanning it. Eric continued. Judge hears it Friday. You've got 48 hours. Theo stepped forward. You can't take us. Eric gave a tight smile. Let's let the court decide, kiddo. Daniel stood tall. Get out. Eric raised both hands. Just doing what's best for family. Once the door slammed shut, Owen whispered, He's lying. Daniel turned to the boys. No one is taking you away. Not now, not ever. That night, Daniel met with his lawyer, Amanda, in the study. We're ready, Amanda said, placing a thick binder on the table. Custody paperwork, Claire's sworn letter, DNA tests. But we'll need character statements and proof of consistent involvement. Daniel nodded. I've documented everything. Hospital bills, school visits, Claire's therapy schedule, even the art studio progress. Amanda paused. Still, be ready. Eric's playing dirty. He's not after the boys. He's after your name. Daniel glanced at the sketchbook on his desk. On the cover, Theo had taped a new label. Hayes Legacy. I won't let them be used, Daniel said. The next afternoon, Theo and Owen sat on the studio floor, painting side by side. Rain pattered on the skylight again. Dad, Theo asked, what if they believe him? What if they think we're not safe with you? Daniel knelt beside them. Then we show them what safety looks like. We show them this, what we've built together. Owen reached into his backpack and pulled out a faded photo of him and Theo in their old apartment, Claire in the background on a couch, looking tired but smiling. Can we use this? Owen asked. Like proof of how far we came? Daniel gently took the photo. It says more than words ever could. The next day, as the storm picked up outside, Daniel packed the folder, the photo, and Theo's newest sketch, one of the studio with kids painting at long tables. On the back, Theo had written, This is what home looks like. Let us stay. Daniel tucked it in carefully. At bedtime, Claire called, her voice steadier, stronger. The boys told me, she said. Eric's always wanted control. He tried to get power of attorney when I first got sick. Daniel exhaled slowly. We're ready for him, but it means everything that you trust me. Claire's voice cracked. I don't just trust you. I see you trying, really trying, and they see it too. Theo popped into the room in his pajamas. Hey, Mom, we're painting the dragon tomorrow. Claire chuckled. Make sure he breathes fire. After the call, Daniel looked at the wall. The broken tile sat next to Theo's newest drawing and the family photo from earlier, scattered pieces held together by memory. Look what I made, Dad, Theo whispered, holding up a fresh drawing. 3 people standing tall. The dragon behind them, labeled in bold, unbreakable. Snow fell lightly across downtown Chicago the morning Daniel stepped into the law office with Amanda at his side. The custody hearing was less than 24 hours away, and the stakes had never felt heavier. Daniel placed the folder on the table. Everything's in here. Claire's notarized statement, DNA results, documentation of every expense, every visit, every sketch Theo made. Amanda nodded. We also have the school counselor's letter. She wrote that the boys have shown improved performance, stability, and happiness since moving in with you. Daniel exhaled. It's not just paperwork. They're my sons. Amanda gave a gentle smile. And tomorrow, we make the court see that. That evening, Theo and Owen sat on the living room floor, surrounded by colored pencils and brushes. The broken tile Owen had found weeks ago now sat on a small wood base, painted gold around the cracks. Their names were carved into it. It's kintsugi, Owen said, the Japanese art of fixing broken things with gold. It's prettier after the break. Theo added, We want to bring it to court. Daniel knelt beside them. As long as I'm breathing, no one's breaking us again. The next morning, the courtroom buzzed with quiet tension. Claire, though pale, sat in the front row beside Amanda. She reached for Daniel's hand. Thank you for fighting, she whispered. For them. For me. He nodded, but his gaze never left Eric, seated across the aisle with a smug attorney. The judge entered, and the room fell silent. Eric's lawyer spoke first, citing Daniel's sudden reappearance, his wealth, and potential to disrupt the children's emotional environment. Daniel leaned in as Amanda rose. "Watch this." Amanda stood tall. "Your Honor, we submit the following: a notarized statement from the boy's mother, DNA proof of paternity, a comprehensive record of the boy's thriving progress under Mr. Hayes's care. And one more thing." She held up the gold-lined tile. "This was made by Owen Hayes, age 12. After learning his mother was ill, after his father stepped into their lives, he calls it unbreakable." Murmurs rippled through the courtroom. Amanda continued. "This tile isn't evidence of wealth. It's evidence of healing, of love, of family." The judge leaned forward. "Mr. Hayes, do you have anything to say?" Daniel rose. His voice was calm but steady. "I used to build towers out of steel and glass, but none of them mattered until I met two boys who just wanted someone to come home to. I'm not perfect, but I'm present. I'm here, and I will be, every day." The judge paused, then turned. "Claire?" She stood, gripping the bench. "Daniel's the only reason I'm still fighting. He didn't just take in Theo and Owen, he gave them a future. Please, don't take that away." Eric stood abruptly. "He's manipulating everyone. She's sick. Those kids aren't safe." Amanda cut in. "We call Daniel's former assistant to the stand." A door opened. A nervous woman stepped forward. The judge raised an eyebrow. Amanda asked, "Can you tell the court what you did with the letters Claire sent to Mr. Hayes 12 years ago?" The assistant swallowed. I threw them out. I thought she wanted money. I never told Daniel." The courtroom went silent. Daniel stared down, grief and anger colliding in his chest. The judge leaned back, gaze steady. "I've heard enough." He tapped his gavel. "This court recognizes Daniel Hayes as the legal guardian of Theo and Owen Hayes. Custody granted. Claire Mason to retain medical guardianship with full access and visitation." Owen grinned. Theo blinked rapidly, holding back tears. Daniel hugged them tight. Claire whispered, "You didn't just build a home. You built us back together." And Daniel, for the first time, felt whole. The courtroom emptied slowly, the sound of echoing heels and shuffling papers fading as Daniel stood at the bench, still gripping the judge's words in his chest like an anchor. Custody granted. Claire approached, with a nurse helping her along. Her eyes were tired but hopeful. "You did it," she said softly. "We did," Daniel replied. "Together." Theo and Owen ran to them, hugging Claire tight. Daniel watched them like a man who'd been holding his breath for years. But before they could leave, the judge called, "Mr. Hayes, 1 moment, please." Daniel stepped forward, confused. The judge motioned toward a court clerk who handed him a sealed envelope. The judge explained, "It's a signed affidavit from your former assistant. She submitted it anonymously to the ethics board as well. You may want to review it." Daniel took the envelope. Inside was the truth. Claire had sent not just letters, but 2 legal notifications of paternity filed through the firm's mailroom. The assistant had intercepted them both. Her statement ended with one line, "I destroyed lives thinking I was protecting his." Daniel felt the weight settle in his palms. Not just what had been taken, but what could have never been found. Outside the courthouse, snow still fell, gentle now, like forgiveness. Daniel crouched beside the boys on the courthouse steps. "We're going to get lunch," Owen announced, "and celebrate. Claire gets soup, but we get fries." Theo added, "And chocolate milk, that's non-negotiable." Daniel smiled, folding the affidavit back into his coat. "You two are my best negotiators." They laughed, the sound echoing down the block like music. Back at the penthouse, Daniel pinned the affidavit beside the boy's drawings on the wall above his desk. It didn't represent betrayal anymore. It represented the full story, the pain and the healing, the lie and the truth. That night, Daniel tucked Theo and Owen into bed. Owen held the golden tile in his hand like a keepsake. "Dad," Owen said, "can we put this at the new cafe? Somewhere people can touch it." Theo added, "Yeah, like when they come in and feel lost, maybe they'll know something broken can still be beautiful." Daniel's eyes misted. "It'll be the first thing they see." Claire texted from the hospital just before midnight. "Thank you for everything. I feel them healing. And me too." Daniel sat alone at the kitchen table afterward, watching the snow from the window. He took out the sketch Theo had drawn weeks ago. 3 stick figures standing under the name OT Studio. He flipped it over and wrote, "Built on second chances, sealed in love." The next morning, they began planning the cafe. Owen sketched a mural of a phoenix wrapped around the golden tile. Theo mapped out the lighting. Claire, from her hospital bed, picked out curtain colors and vintage teacups. Amanda visited later that week, dropping off the final paperwork. "Any regrets?" she asked. Daniel looked around, the boys painting on the floor, the golden tile glinting in the sunlight, Claire's voice laughing over speakerphone. "Only that I didn't find them sooner," he said. Amanda smiled. "Funny thing about wind, it always carries whispers. We just have to stop long enough to hear them." Daniel nodded, and in that moment, the wind against the windows didn't sound like noise. It sounded like home. Snow melted into spring across Chicago, and with it, the tension that had clung to Daniel's home finally lifted. One Sunday morning, sunlight poured through the penthouse windows, splashing golden across the living room. Theo sat curled on the rug, flipping through a design catalog, while Owen leaned over his shoulder, pencil in hand, sketching a layout for their cafe's back patio. Daniel stood at the stove, apron dusted with flour, flipping pancakes like it was the most natural thing in the world. Claire's voice rang out from the hallway. "I smell cinnamon." She entered slowly, wrapped in a shawl. Her cheeks had more color, her posture stronger. Daniel turned. "You're up early." She smiled. "Didn't want to miss Sunday pancakes, or the boys' next masterpiece." Owen raised a finger. "We're calling it the Sunlight Wall. It's a mural of all the places we've lived. Only this time, they're filled with color." Theo nodded. "Every building has a golden window. One of them has us in it. Together." Claire's eyes misted. "You two never stop making me cry." Daniel placed 3 plates on the table. "Then let's make sure they're happy tears." Later that afternoon, Daniel, Theo, and Owen visited the site for Art and Anchor, their cafe still under renovation but pulsing with potential. A wooden sign leaned against the wall, half painted. Daniel traced the bold brushstrokes of Theo's design, the anchor twisted into a paintbrush. "This place feels like a heartbeat," Daniel murmured. Owen turned from the ladder. "What's that mean?" Daniel chuckled. "It means it's alive." Theo walked to the front counter, where a glass display case had just been installed. He gently placed his folded birth certificate inside, nestled between 2 spotlights. "I want people to see it when they walk in," he said. "Not because it's fancy, but because it's how we started." Daniel swallowed. "Are you sure?" Theo nodded. "You found us because of it. It's not just paper, it's proof." That night, the family gathered in the living room again. Claire sat on the couch, sipping tea, her hands wrapped around the warm mug. Theo curled up beside her. "Can I ask you something?" Claire looked down. "Anything, sweetheart." "When you wrote those letters, did you think he'd ever come?" She hesitated, eyes flicking toward Daniel. "I didn't know, but I believed he'd want to, if he ever got the chance." Daniel leaned forward. "I'm sorry I didn't get them." Claire met his gaze. "You're here now. That's what matters." Owen broke the silence. "You know, the golden tile? We should make a second one, a new one, for the cafe." Daniel tilted his head. "Why?" Owen smiled. "Because the first one was about surviving the break. This one will be about what we built after." Daniel's voice caught. "Then we'll hang them side by side." As the boys headed to bed, Claire lingered. "Daniel, thank you." He turned. "For what?" "For believing in them. For not running. For making space for me, even when I was falling apart. He stepped closer. You don't have to thank me. I should have been here 12 years ago. I'm just making up for lost time. She rested her head against his shoulder. Well, whatever time we have left, it's ours now. In the quiet, the wind brushed against the window panes, soft as a whisper. In that moment, the birth certificate in the cafe display case wasn't a document. It was a declaration that broken things could be found. And love, when held long enough, could become something unshakable. 3 months later, on a crisp autumn morning, a ribbon stretched across the entrance of a once-empty corner lot in the Logan Square. Locals gathered, drawn by the buzz. The old tailor shop had transformed into something vibrant. Modern black and wood accents, warm golden lights inside, and a bold sign above the door. Art and Anchor. Daniel stood by the entrance in a navy blazer, arms gently resting on the shoulders of Theo and Owen, both dressed in matching cream aprons flecked with paint. You boys ready? Daniel asked softly. Theo grinned, eyes shining. I was born ready. Owen added, Let's cut it like a mural, clean and strong. The crowd chuckled as Claire, bundled in a light coat and scarf, stepped forward slowly with a cane. She handed Theo the scissors. This place, it's your beginning, she whispered. Theo looked at her, then at Daniel. No, it's our beginning. The ribbon fell clean. Inside, customers stepped into a world of creativity. To the right, a wall-sized mural by Owen told the story. Boys on bikes, a mother in a hospital bed, a man reaching through wind to hold their hands. To the left, Theo's architectural layout brought it to life. Cozy reading nooks, low-hanging art pieces, and coffee tables shaped like miniature cityscapes. At the front, under warm light, encased in glass, sat Theo's original birth certificate. A small plaque beside it read, Sometimes the wind doesn't scatter. It brings things home. Daniel stood back as the patrons admired the display. A woman leaned over to read it, tears welling in her eyes. Claire approached him slowly. You okay? He exhaled. Just watching what love built. Theo darted over. Dad! The lady at table 4 wants to buy Owen's print. She called it emotional architecture. Daniel laughed, the sound echoing through the cafe. Well, that's about right. Owen joined them, his hands smudged with charcoal. And someone asked for a mural consultation at a school downtown. Claire's eyes softened. Your sons are artists, Daniel. They found their place. Daniel nodded, looking at the birth certificate one more time. That piece of paper, I used to think it was a mistake. Now it's a masterpiece. A man in a gray suit stepped through the door. Eric. He hesitated by the mural, gaze flicking to the plaque, then to Daniel. They locked eyes, no words, just a nod. Then Eric turned and left. Claire whispered, Think that was his version of letting go? Daniel watched the door shut behind him. Maybe. Or maybe he finally saw what he couldn't take. Outside, the wind picked up, rustling the golden leaves along the sidewalk. Inside, Theo handed Daniel a paper menu he'd designed himself. We named the drinks after stories. Daniel scanned the list. The Architect's Regret, Mom's Strong Brew, Anchor Roast, and at the very bottom, The Wind's Whisper. He looked up, eyes misty. That last one, that's yours? Theo nodded. It's the one that brought us to you. As the cafe filled with laughter, clinking mugs, and the hum of rediscovery, Daniel placed the menu down and pulled both boys into a quiet hug. I didn't just get sons, he murmured. I got my story back. And, in the heart of Chicago, under that sign that now meant everything, Art and Anchor didn't just open for business, it opened for healing. The bell above the cafe door chimed softly as Claire stepped inside, leaning gently on her cane. Daniel looked up from the counter and froze, smile catching at the corners of his lips. She wasn't just walking, she was glowing. Mom! Theo rushed over, nearly knocking over a stool. Owen followed, his apron still dusted with turquoise paint. They each took one of her hands, guiding her slowly to the front table marked Reserved. Daniel approached with steady steps. "How's the new dialysis center treating you?" Claire nodded, eyes misting. "They say I'm stronger than most. I say, maybe I have more to live for now." They all sat together, the morning sun warming the window glass beside them. The light landed on the birth certificate encased nearby, its corners gently curled with age. Theo reached for his sketch pad and slid it toward her. "Look what I made, Mom. It's you, sitting right here, with us." The drawing showed Claire in her chair, smiling, Daniel beside her, arms around the boys. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. Claire touched the paper gently. "You even got the way your brother chews his lip when he's thinking." Owen blushed. "Did not." Daniel chuckled. "You absolutely do, buddy." Claire leaned back, looking around the cafe. A couple sipped lattes under Owen's mural. A boy sketched near the bar, copying one of Theo's table designs. Laughter drifted from the kitchen. "This isn't just a cafe," she whispered. "It's a second chance, isn't it?" Daniel nodded. "It's a family story, still being written." A delivery driver pushed open the front door. Wind swept in, lifting a napkin from one of the tables. It swirled high before landing right at Claire's feet. She picked it up slowly. On it was a doodle, 2 anchors and a heart. Theo smiled. "We stamp those now. Every order means the anchor held." Claire folded the napkin and tucked it into her coat pocket. Later that evening, the cafe hosted its first open art night. Strings of soft lights draped across the ceiling. Theo and Owen displayed their newest pieces. Owen's abstract painting of a man reaching through storm clouds, and Theo's hand-drawn layout for a children's reading corner. Daniel stepped on stage briefly. "When I first met Theo, he dropped something. A piece of paper I thought would end my world. But it began one instead." The room quieted. "That paper told me I was a father. What it didn't say was that I'd also get a partner back, a purpose, and a reason to open doors I didn't even know were closed." He raised his glass. "To the wind. May it always whisper us home." Claire watched from her table, hand wrapped gently around her cane, the napkin still in her lap. As applause filled the cafe, she turned to Theo and Owen. "You boys gave me life twice," she said softly. "Once when you were born, and again when you brought him back." Theo leaned in. "We just followed the wind, Mom." That night, as they locked up, Daniel paused at the door. He looked back at the birth certificate on the wall one last time. It wasn't just ink and paper now, it was a compass, a promise, a new beginning. And just outside, the wind hummed against the glass, gentle, familiar, whole.